وين هي الدولة اللبنانية ترد؟ وين هي؟
Good afternoon. It is Sunday, June 23rd. I'm Yumna Naufal, and these are today's headlines. Supporters of Sheikh Ahmed al-Asir attack a Lebanese army checkpoint in Saida. 1 dead and 13 wounded so far. The Friends of Syria meeting in Qatar agrees to stop up their support for rebels battling to overthrow the Syrian regime. And former U.S. intelligence technician Edward Snowden has departed Hong Kong and is heading to a third destination through legal means. Supporters of Sheikh Ahmed al-Asir have attacked a Lebanese army checkpoint in Abra, east of the southern city of Saida, killing at least 2 army officers and wounding at least 13. Sources say the afternoon assault took place on the main road to Abra, not far from the Bilal bin Rabah mosque, where Asir preaches. Following the attack, fighting ensued with heavy use of rocket-propelled grenades and machine gun fire. Now, while Asir supporters fired RPGs at the Lebanese army, soldiers fired machine guns to avoid civilian casualties. In his weekly sermon on Friday, Asir had a message for the military. He said the army, especially Sunni personnel and officers, should not carry out any mission which harms their Sunni brothers in Lebanon and for which they would be held accountable on the Day of Judgment. Tensions soared in Saida on Tuesday when an armed clash erupted between Asir supporters and members from the resistance brigades. The Lebanese Option Party is staging a rally in front of the Iranian embassy in the Bir al-Hassan area, south of Beirut as well. The rally was held in memory of the death of party member Hashim al-Salman during a demonstration in front of the embassy 2 weeks ago. Tens of supporters of the party, civil society activists and members of Salman's family arrived in front of the embassy where they laid flowers near the facility. The supporters then sang the Lebanese national anthem before leaving the scene. The rally was held amid the heavy deployment of the army. Just to remind you, on June 9th, Salman was killed and at least 11 others were wounded in a scuffle between supporters of Hezbollah and protesters near the Iranian embassy in Beirut. The demonstrators were holding a sit-in near the embassy to protest Hezbollah's involvement in the war in Syria. The Lebanese Option Party is led by the March 14 politician Ahmed Assad. Kataib Party leader Amin Gemayel stresses that the resistance movements in Lebanon have always sought Lebanese interests, but it is not known what Hezbollah seeks to gain from fighting in Syria. He told Voice of Lebanon Radio that Hezbollah's involvement in foreign conflicts will make it the victim of its own actions. Gemayel added, however, that had it not been for the country's immunity, it would not have been able to remain on its feet. This comes after Hezbollah chief Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah acknowledged the members of the party were fighting alongside Syrian troops against rebel forces. He justified the involvement by saying that the fighters are defending holy Shia sites and combating American, Zionist, and Takfiri agendas in Syria. Friends of Syria group have agreed to give rebels military support and calling for Iran and Hezbollah to end their roles. On the other hand, Iran is condemning this decision, and Russia warns that weapons provided to the rebels could fall into the hands of extremist groups like Al-Nusra Front, labeled a terrorist organization by the United States. The details are in this report.
Ministers from the 11 nations of the Friends of Syria have agreed to give urgent military support to Syrian rebels fighting President Bashar al-Assad and to channel that aid through a Western-backed rebel military command. Ministers from Britain, France, the US, Germany, Italy, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, Turkey and Egypt say they will urgently provide all the necessary material and equipment to the opposition on the ground to address the imbalance of the conflict. Their final statement also condemned the intervention of Hezbollah militias and fighters from Iran and Iraq, demanding that they withdraw immediately from Syria.
We have said today very clearly we are going to step up in order to provide the capacity to the SMC and to the Syrian opposition to be able to directly address the situation on the ground. Now, that's as specific as I can be and as I intend to be here today. What is clear is that every country committed today to step up what it is doing in direct response to what has happened on the ground. And also what is different is that this is now in response to what Iran and Hezbollah are doing. It is Hezbollah and Assad who have taken a situation that was seeking to defuse the sectarian components and try to go to a negotiating table to resolve this in a way that protects everybody in the country. They have taken that and now transformed it into a much more volatile, potentially explosive situation that could involve the entire region. That is the only purpose for the Geneva II meeting. It is to implement Geneva I, and Geneva I is explicit about what it calls on the parties to achieve.
The ministers said the growing sectarian nature of the conflict and the foreign interventions threatened the unity of Syria and broadened the conflict across the region. They also expressed strong concern at the increasing presence of terrorist elements and growing radicalization in Syria. Despite the agreement to send military support to the rebels, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry urged both sides to come to the table and find a political settlement. Qatar's Prime Minister Hamad bin Jassim bin Jabal Al Thani said forces may be the only way to enforce righteousness, and supplying weapons to the opposition may be the only way to reach peace in Syria. Russia, an ally to the Syrian regime, has warned that weapons provided to rebels could fall into the hands of groups like Al-Nusra Front, which the U.S. has branded a terrorist organization. Moreover, Iran's official news agency says the country has denounced a decision by Western and Arab countries to send the weapons to Syrian rebels, saying those who support sending weapons to Syria are responsible for the massacre of innocents and for the insecurity in the region.
On the ground, a suicide attack hit the northern Damascus district of Rukn ad-Din. The Syrian state broadcaster has reported, while a watchdog says 3 people were killed in the attack. A terrorist suicide explosion hit the Rukn ad-Din neighborhood of Damascus. There are reports of victims, state television said, although did not provide a specific toll. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said 3 people killed in the explosion, but it did not specify what had caused the blast. The Britain-based group also said security forces deployed en masse in the district and closed off several roads in the area. Rukn ad-Din adjoins the Flashpoint Berzeh district, scene of fierce fighting pitting rebels against troops after the army recently escalated its efforts to crush the insurgency around Damascus. A powerful explosion, meanwhile, rocked Aleppo's Menin air base, which rebels fighting to topple President Bashar al-Assad's regime have been trying for months to wrest from army control. Coming up next, for most Palestinians, the winner of Arab Idol was like the end of Ramadan holiday combined with the World Cup final. The festivities when we return. Welcome back. You're watching Future Television. Around the world in brief, rescuers have found bodies in the river Ganges in the muddy, broken earth left by landslides in India, raising the death toll from the monsoon flooding in mountainous northern towns to nearly 600. The Air Force dropped paratroopers, food and medicine for people trapped in up to 100 towns and villages cut off since Sunday in the Himalayan state of Uttarakhand, where thousands of people are stranded, many of them Hindu pilgrims. Uttarakhand government spokesman Amit Chandola said the rescue operation centered on evacuating nearly 27,000 people trapped in the worst-hit Kendar temple area, one of the holiest Hindu temples dedicated to Lord Shiva. Pakistan's umbrella Taliban movement claims responsibility for killing 9 foreign climbers in the Himalayas, saying it had created a new wing to attack foreigners to avenge U.S. drone strikes. Gunmen had stormed a base camp in a remote part of northern Pakistan and killed 9 tourists and 1 Pakistani guide who were part of a Nanja Parbat mountaineering expedition, according to police officials. Spokesman Ihsanullah Naseed said the killings were intended to avenge the death of the second-in-command of the umbrella Tahrir Taliban in a U.S. drone strike late last month. And Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas accepts the resignation of Prime Minister Rami Hamdallah, who announced he was quitting just 2 weeks after taking office. Hamdallah's resignation was prompted by disagreements with his 2 deputies. While he is not involved in diplomacy, the timing of the change comes as a tricky time for Abbas. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry is about to return to the region as part of his push to renew the Israeli-Palestinian peace process. The 54-year-old Hamdallah was named to the position on June 2nd following the resignation of Salam Fayyad. A 22-year-old Palestinian communication student won the popular TV talent show Arab Idol following weeks of a competition in Beirut and in which he enchanted Arabs of all nations. A firm favorite amongst the listeners, Muhammad Assaf, who grew up in Gaza's Khan Yunis refugee camp, won the coveted spot, beating two other finalists, Syrian woman Farah Youssef and an Egyptian man, Ahmad Jamal. His polished good looks also won the hearts of many women who compared him to the late Egyptian singer Abdel Halim Hafiz. Palestinian cities erupted in joy when Assaf won the song contest final, providing a welcome break from the grinding conflict with Israel. After the victory, Assaf was named by the UN as its first youth ambassador to Palestinian refugee camps in the territories and in neighboring countries. He's expected to visit the West Bank to perform shortly. Former U.S. intelligence technician Edward Snowden, the American who revealed the existence of secret surveillance programs operated by the United States and Britain, left his Hong Kong safe house this morning, and he braced himself to become the subject of a lengthy and now global fight for his extradition. Linda Tamim reports.
Hong Kong authorities were silent on the fate of former U.S. National Security Agency contractor Edward Snowden. Snowden, who faces extradition from Hong Kong on espionage charges, said the U.S. NSA hacked Chinese mobile phone text messages. Sources quoted him saying the agency also attacked Tsinghua University's server and accessed computers at the Hong Kong headquarters of PacNet Ltd., which owns one of the most extensive fiber-optic submarine cable networks in the region. Snowden was charged with theft of U.S. government property, unauthorized communication of national defense information, and willful communication of classified communications intelligence to an unauthorized person, according to the criminal complaint made public on June the 21st. He could face up to 10 years of prison for the latter two offenses. Local residents had mixed feelings about Snowden. British expat Aaron Rose says Snowden was just trying to serve the people.
I think maybe he knows more than what he's letting on, and he's releasing it slowly. And why shouldn't we know what's going on in the world? Why is it always the government that knows everything and we don't know enough? So he's just giving something back to the people.
Further apart, Tsinghua University students said they were shocked at the news.
I was shocked when I first heard it. I have never felt so insecure before. They provide us with advanced technologies, but that comes along with great hidden security risks. I think it is pretty scary. Moral values are more important than technologies.
The Washington Post says the United States had asked Hong Kong to detain Snowden on a provisional arrest warrant. Claudia Mo, a pro-democracy legislator and member of the Civic Party, says the Snowden case will put Hong Kong's rule of law to the test.
It's an international story and it's now in the public eye, so it would be a big test case for Hong Kong's rule of law. I should expect there would be plenty of legal wrangles. Theft, it's not political, but then espionage should be political by nature. And according to our extradition with or treaty with the United States, anything that's political would come under all kinds of arguments to start.
The local government, which says Hong Kong had not obtained adequate information to handle a provisional arrest warrant for Snowden issued by the U.S., have confirmed that Snowden departed Hong Kong to Moscow through legal means. Sources believe that Russia is not his final destination, and he is expected to fly on to another country where he is most likely to be able to claim political asylum.
U.S. President Barack Obama is announcing he will lay out his vision for a global response to climate change during a policy speech in Washington next week, as he sets to make the battle over climate change a priority for his second term. Environmentalists have been pushing the administration to set tighter standards for the roughly 1,400 coal-fired burners that feed the nation's electric grid.
Address, I pledge that America would respond to the growing threat of climate change for the sake of our children and future generations. This Tuesday at Georgetown University, I'll lay out my vision for where I believe we need to go. A national plan to reduce carbon pollution, prepare our country for the impacts of climate change, and lead global efforts to fight it. This is a serious challenge, but it's one uniquely suited to America's strengths. We'll need scientists to design new fuels and farmers to grow them. We'll need engineers to devise new sources of energy and businesses to make and sell them. We'll need workers to build the foundation for a clean energy economy. And we'll need all of our citizens to do our part to preserve God's creation for future generations. Our forests and waterways, our croplands and snow-capped peaks. There's no single step that can reverse the effects of climate change. But when it comes to the world we leave our children, we owe it to them to do what we can. So I hope you'll share this message with your friends, because this is a challenge that affects everyone, and we all have a stake in solving it together. I hope to see you Tuesday. Thanks.
All right, we're closing our bulletin for today. Let me remind you of our top stories. Supporters of Sheikh Ahmed al-Asir attack a Lebanese army checkpoint in Saida. 2 dead and 13 wounded so far. The Friends of Syria meeting in Qatar. Well, they agree to step up their support for rebels battling to overthrow the Syrian regime. Former U.S. intelligence technician Edward Snowden is departing Hong Kong. He's headed to a third destination through legal means to seek political asylum. Those are your Sunday headlines live on Future Television. From me and the team here at Future News, we wish you a great week ahead. Good night.
وين هي الدولة اللبنانية تردواني